My name is James L. White. They call me Buster. I'm 94 years old. They got called up to the draft board, and when we went up there, there was 7 of us win, and we, while we was up there, we just volunteered to go on. They had a school going on over there, mechanic school for airplanes, and so I seen where I'd had some experience in supplies, and so they called for me to go over there and go to work. So I had to go over there and we go to New Orleans had a sub depot there for parts and all, and so I had to go over there every morning and get them a list of what they needed to work with. Well, they finally sent me out to Lebanon, Tennessee. They was on a training program up there right out of Lebanon, Tennessee. And so one of my best friends I went in the service with, he was the first man I seen there when we got up there that night, and so we stayed together the whole time during the war. And our bunks were side by side, and we worked in the same warehouse the whole time we was there. We went to Dyersburg, Tennessee to prepare for going overseas, and we were up there, I reckon, 6 or 7 weeks or something, getting all of our stuff fixed up to go overseas. Then we left Dyersburg then and on a troop train, and beds and everything, meals and everything was on the train, and so it took us 3 days to get to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, where we loaded the ship to go to England. We crossed the North Atlantic and landed at Glasgow, Scotland. And we stayed there a few days, and they sent us on down to Bottisham, England, down there, a little small village right out of Cambridge, England, there where the big University of Cambridge is. We got there in November of '43, and we left there in September of '44. So they sent me down there and got me a driving license program. We was assigned, there was over 3,000 men there. We was assigned to the 361st Fighter Group, which was a big outfit. And anyway, we was in the 468 Service Squadron, which we done all of the major overhauls, all the major repairs, and everything like that. And I was assigned to the Army Air Corps Supply, and which consisted of 39 men. And out of that 39 men, I was the only one that ever was issued the GI driving license to drive them big trucks on the wrong side of the road. Well, when we got there, we had to go there and prepare the base there. They didn't have nothing set up. The Air Corps Supply wasn't there, and of course, like I say, we had, with the fighter group that we was attached to, they had 7 different service squadrons attached to them. Over the whole base, there were 3,000 and some people there. So it was just no farm, and they had to bring them metal things in here to make metal runways out of. We had a time landing and taking off there at Bottisham. We was standing outside there, outside of our barracks, just pitching baseball and softball, rather. We played a lot of softball over there. And so we looked up, and there was a little bomber plane, I think it was a B-25, that making some kind of real racket. And anyhow, I don't know if he was headed into combat or coming from combat, but the plane was making an awful racket, and it wasn't 50 yards from our barracks. And that thing exploded and had still all the armaments on it, and that thing exploded in midair, and they wasn't a piece of that airplane left biggest piece in there, I reckon part of the fuselage wasn't a 3-foot square. Right after the invasion, he got shot down over France over there, and his body never was recovered. That base went into some kind of mourning because everybody loved him, and he was the commanding officer, all of the service squadrons, and he was the head knocker of the whole base. He would come in the enlisted men's mess hall and sit down at the table and eat with us. And one Sunday night, I remember in particular, he'd come in there and sit right down there at the end of the table where I was eating, and I got to talk with him personally a little bit. And after Christensen got shot down over France, there's a lieutenant commander, he taken over, and he made a career out of the Air Force, and he went on and stayed into the Air Force till he became a 4-star general. Anyway, I got to meet him on a personal basis. I kept all of the flying gear and flying coveralls and flying jackets and all for the pilots. And so I got in a ship with a little pin lights there one day, and they laid there for a while, and nobody never called for them. And so Colonel Cruz will come in there one day looking for one of them, and so I didn't have one. I had give them all to my buddies, and I figured that he might court-martial me over it, but he didn't. He was pretty jolly over it. The buzz bombs right at the end of World War II there was the biggest thing Germany had to fight with, and they'd fill that thing up, and it would fly overhead, and it's like a lawnmower running upside down, turning upside down, and it would fly over, and it had just enough fuel to shoot it at London, and a lot of times it would run out of fuel before it get hit, and it was I had went into Liberty Run that night, and I wasn't there, but one of those things crashed right outside of our base there, and it like to scare them all to death. They all went to the air raid shelters and spent the rest of the night. London now, went to London several different times right after we got over there, and you go to London one month and maybe go back the next, and there'd be the whole block of the city would be completely destroyed. 4 of our supply fellas that I worked with, my buddy that I shared with, he married an English girl, and they was already married when we went to Belgium. And so we got over there in Belgium then, and so we knew the war was over. It wasn't quite over, but we knew they'd run out of gas. And so they had signed a B-24 bomber there on our base to fly back and forth to England with. And so I was down there helping them all get, then so they was flying them back that morning to our base there at Little Walden. And so this little pilot, he was flying the plane, he was standing there, and he told me, he says, jump in here and ride over there with us. Says, we'll be back in just a little bit. And I said, man, what are you talking about? I was in my fatigues, nothing but my dog tags for identification. And so we had a little Jewish fella from New York City. And he was a little bitty feller, and he said, oh, get on there and go with him. Said, it ain't gonna hurt nothing. So we got in there and flew over there and landed, and it was about dinner time, and we got they had mess right at the mess hall, and so there was a skeleton crew still there. And so we got in and eat us dinner and come back out and got in the plane and taken off to go back to Belgium. And when we got up there and got the plane leveled off, he said, the pilot says, I need to take me a little nap. said, how about sitting down here and flying this thing for me a little while? And he showed me that mantle, that thing up there where all the instruments was, and showed me what I was supposed to do. And the co-pilot was sitting over here, but he never did touch that thing at all. I flew across the English Channel, flew all the way in there, and I don't know, must have been an hour or more, something like that. And so the pilot finally got up there, and he says, you might better let me set it down. I said, by all means, I'll let you set it down. So he got up, and that's one of them stories that you don't believe, but that actually happened. I never will forget it. He showed me them levels there, everything you had on the level. You pull out to go up and push down to go down, and this and that, and you had to keep it leveled. And it was just like a big carpenter's level up there on that thing. You had to get them bubbles, they keep them bubbles right in the middle of it all the time. After the war was over, we did see a crash on the base, and a fella, one of the pilots, I reckon, was happy and everything. The war was over, and he took off out there in one of his plane that morning, and he pulled up his running wheels, and when he did, he leveled that thing off, and the propeller went into the runway there, and tore the plane all to pieces and killed him. The 8th Air Force got credit really for just about winning the war. Now they flew a lot of missions over there. Now some of our crews flew 4 missions a day. We just really had a good time there at Bottisham. We just had run into a lot of good people there, and got to know a lot of the farmers and all that was around there. The English people treated us mighty good.